or a guy named Elijah Manning, or idiots like Rex would say Brett Favre. I'm going to say Aaron of the Cheeseheads.
Well, you said it, but not the right one. The answer is Eli Manning.
Idiot!
Let the record show.
Dummy!
Let the record
Stupid!
show. One of the reasons for the enthusiastic reaction is that Elle had it right. When we were sitting at the desk, Elle said it could be Eli Manning, and everyone dismissed her immediately. It's Eli Manning who has won there 5 times.
Came back and said it.
Okay, I need to change the tone because we're going to get to Steelers-Ravens now, and this started, or our highlight, I should say, starts with, for my money, the scariest moment of the NFL season by far. It's the third quarter. The Steelers are down 4. It's a third down, and give credit to Mason Rudolph. He's trying to make a play, even though he knows he's going to take a big hit. He may not have known it was going to be this big. Pay no attention to where the play ends up, even though it is a big gain. But take a look at what winds up happening to Mason Rudolph. Down he goes. We'll show you how he gets hit here. Brandon Carr and Earl Thomas sandwich him, and if you look closely, you can see he's out cold before he hits the ground. The reaction of his teammates, overwhelming. You've all been on the field when things like this happen, Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah, this is the scariest moment any player can ever have. If it's not you directly, is watching your teammate have to experience this.
A cart was available. We'll explain all of that in a moment. Rudolph would go to the hospital due to a concussion. He was released last night. We'll have much more on that in a moment. Let me take you through the rest of the game because there was controversy there as well. 2.5 to go in the game. Ravens with the ball. They're down 3. Now, in a moment where we just saw a quarterback get seriously hurt, I don't want to complain about a roughing the passer, but this is a bad call.
I mean, watch the initial contact. The initial contact that he gets pushed down is basically at the waist, and then he slides down. There's no way that's a personal foul.
But they call it roughing, and it leads to this. It leads to the tying field goal, so it's an extremely important call and moment in the game and candidly in the season. By the way, Justin Tucker is as clutch as it gets. Steelers elect to defer in the overtime, and it works. They force a 3 and out. They get the ball back. And then here's the play of the game. This is Juju Smith-Schuster. Live action, I thought it was going to be ruled an incomplete pass. But as you watch it again, you'll see that it is the right call. It is a catch and a fumble. The Ravens recover in Steeler territory. That is a great play by Marlon Humphrey to punch it out, and it sets up this. Justin Tucker, maybe he grew up watching Jack Nicklaus play golf because this is like a high draw with a 2-iron. Look at that thing, and it's perfect. Ravens win it 26-23. On a day filled with drama and emotion of all different sorts. So let me start with the Mason Rudolph piece, because all of us who watch football all saw what happened, and it was a frightening moment. There was apparently, what was reported widely was that there's a problem with the cart. It was operator error with the cart. There apparently was another cart available that could have transported him off the field, but Mason Rudolph wanted to walk off the field. Having said all of that, those are the facts as we have them. Rex, what is your reaction to the way the whole thing worked out?
Well, I think the first thing I thought is leave the man on the cart. I don't care if it's working or not. The team will, both teams for that matter, would push that cart off.
Agreed.
And that's the thing. I couldn't understand it. I thought it was awful. Now, the fact that he chose to walk off the field. Wait, is he in any kind of condition to make that decision? I don't think so. I thought it was handled poorly.
What do you think, Pat?
Well, I think it's $1 billion business, and anytime those types of situations happen, they're going to be critical of them. Mason Rudolph, I think the optics of it looked bad with the face mask coming off and the helmet on and him kind of getting dragged off, and then the cart looks bad. $1 billion business, you would assume that they'd be able to have a cart that works, but to piggyback off what Rex said, you put him on that cart, and even if it doesn't work, I think that is the type of situation where it's so scary, not only to Steelers fans. You saw Juju was crying because of how scary it was. I had a situation where I watched Austin Collie, a situation like this happen in Philadelphia. Everybody on the field is heartbroken about it. I think there would have been a much smarter way to get him carted off instead of walking off, but you have to credit Mason Rudolph for being a tough guy in a situation where it didn't appear that there was any toughness.
Yes, I mean, many times players want to go back in a game and the coaches will not allow them to.
Adults.
And we will use the expression, you must protect the player from himself. In this circumstance, sitting from the distance at which we sit, acknowledging freely that we're not there and we're not part of the conversation, it did seem at minimum from an optics standpoint and maybe beyond that letting him walk off the field was not the right decision. Having said that, we'll talk more about the injury later. Let's talk about the game. This was obviously an incredibly important game for both teams. What's your primary takeaway from it?
Yeah, the Ravens have some issues, and it starts at their quarterback. You know, I mean, I would say that right now when the teams are playing the Ravens, they're inviting Baltimore to throw the football. Like, here, we're going to let you throw the football. In the last couple weeks, Lamar Jackson cannot throw the football downfield, something he excelled at in the first 2 weeks. In the last 3 weeks, he's 4 for 21 throwing the ball past 10 yards on the line of scrimmage. 4 for 21 for 3 interceptions. And it has come back to this. The accuracy issue of throwing the football downfield, and the hits are starting to add up. They're required to run him more because that offense is struggling. So the offense that we saw the first 2 weeks is not there. And teams are challenging them. They're inviting them to throw the football downfield, and they can't.
No, great point, Dan. And when I look at it, you got to still, this guy is all about running. Yeah. And I'm sorry he's not the great drop back quarterback we were hoping he'd be, but you can still win with this guy. But you got to challenge Greg Roman. Come on, man. We got to get back to running the football. Whether that team knows we're running it or not, that's your bread and butter. And play better defense. You got the best kicker in the game, maybe in the history of the game.
These hits are adding up.
Like, come on.
I was watching you guys on Sunday NFL Countdown yesterday, Rex, making the point that they're getting away a little bit from what they were doing offensively. He's throwing the ball too much, basically.
Right, and when they lit up those first 2 games, he threw a lot less. It's all about, hey, man, this guy will be better the less he throws.
I think the interesting thing about this is Lamar Jackson came out and said he hates running. And I think that happened because he took a couple hits and he realized quickly, like, oh, the history of quarterbacks that are playing the way I was playing early is not a long one. So I think he wanted to become this pocket passer. I think Greg Roman said, listen, we'll get you to pass more. And then all of a sudden, whenever the game gets close, they go, hey, Lamar, listen, the passing ain't working. We need you to run more. And I think whenever he gets loose and gets running, that's when they're at their most, best performances on offense. But it's not going to be able to last for the long haul, I think. I'm excited to see what happens with the Ravens. But it looks like that's the Cleveland Browns division.
Well, if I'm the Browns.
Cleveland Browns.
Why would you say that?
They will,
their quarterback?
Yep, that is exactly right.
Goodness.
They will play tonight on Monday Night Football on ESPN. And I'll tell you what, if I'm the Browns watching that game yesterday, I do feel pretty good about my chances. Having said all of that, we have much more football this morning. But right now, Elle, what other special guest is with us today?
Man, it's October baseball, so we bring in the big guns. Mark Teixeira is with us. We're going to break down Game 3 in LDS between the Dodgers and the Nationals. We pick it up in the top of the 6th. Nats up 2-1. Patrick Corbin coming in relief after starting Game 1. And right away, they just start shelling him.
Yeah, this is Russell Martin, the veteran, in his 10th postseason. A huge double here. That inning got started with Cody Bellinger finally getting a hit in the postseason, and the Dodgers are heating up.
A couple of batters later, it's Kike Hernandez. Keep in mind, David Freese, Kike Hernandez, and Chris Taylor, none of them started this game. They said they knew they'd probably face Corbin, so they took some extra swings in the first inning, and it paid off.
And this is what the Dodgers have done the last few years. They always have guys that can mix and match. The righties came in, and they all came through.
All right, so Corbin is finally pulled. We'll get more on the decision to go with him in the first place in a second. In comes Wander Suero pitching for the Nats. 2 on for Justin Turner. This is what he does,
and
Tex.
This is the backbreaker. I mean, Justin Turner, he gets the 3-2 count, a cutter right down the middle, and he does not miss it.
Dodgers score 7 runs in the 6th. It's the most ever in any inning that they've played in the postseason, and they go on to win in a rout 10-4 at your final. But Patrick Corbin, and back to him, and the idea that they wanted to use him. He threw 107 pitches on Thursday in his start. Why decide to go in as a reliever just 3 days later?
Well, I understand why the Nationals did this. They win Game 2 with Scherzer and Strasburg, 2 starters. They go, you know what? We're going to go Sanchez and Corbin. We're going to stick with our starters here. The problem is Patrick Corbin threw 107 pitches, 3 days rest. He is not used to doing this. And so, we kind of throw out all the records and the way to play baseball in October. Guess what? In October, it's the same thing as the regular season. Starters are not used to throwing on short rest, and it came back to bite the Nationals.
So you think they went too analytical in their approach?
Well, they had to. That's the problem, is that their bullpen's been so bad. And again, it worked the first 2 games that they won, but Strasburg and Scherzer were both rested. This is an unrested Patrick Corbin that's not used to coming out of the bullpen, and he was not sharp. And I feel bad for the kid because he did a great job as a starter in Game 1. He comes back and kind of lays an egg because all of his breaking stuff was up in the zone. He was not sharp, and these Dodgers hitters are way too good to have an unrested starter on the mound.
As Rex Ryan so eloquently put, the kid didn't start himself, so you certainly feel bad for that. But there's another game that Tex thinks that people did not go with their baseball gut and instead kind of took an analytical approach. We're going to see what he's talking about coming up when we talk the other National League Division Series. Well, it was supposed to be Khalil Mack's revenge game, but the Raiders stole one in London to the delight of John